Hey everybody, here we are in the Louisiana State Capitol with another interview with State Representative Tony Bacala. Representative, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Well, I love being here with you.
Well, you know, you always have good legal stuff, or should I say law enforcement stuff. I haven't even looked at your bills yet. Is there law enforcement stuff on here?
It's a mix, yes. It's there's some law enforcement related bills and budget bills. So that's kind of where most of mine are generally.
You always seem to have some well thought out ones, and I want to share them with the people, not only Louisiana, but with the rest of the country who listen to my podcast, because I always tell people what happens here may be happening in your state, so let's see if it is. You got HB 4, an early one there. It's pending the House, but provides relative to the crime of criminal trespass on running waters of the state.
Well, it says pending the House, but in all, it's dead. It did not make it out of committee. Basically, this was a bill that tried to exclude trespass on the water. If you look at civil law quite plainly states that the running waters of the state belong to the state, even if it flows over private property. And yet fishermen continue to get charged with trespassing when in fact they're in my estimation, they're not trespassing if they're floating on waters that belong to the state. There's even been some court cases on this, but
people got their guns pulled on them.
Yes, and it was a close vote, but it did not prevail in committee. So at least for this year, it's not going anywhere.
All right. Well, I know there are a lot of fishermen who are very passionate about that. I've talked to some of them. HB 34 provides relative to the funding deposit account for municipal police employees. There's that law enforcement retirement system and authorizes the Board of Trustees.
Well, if you sit on retirement committee like I do, you're appointed to be a member of the board of directors of those retirement systems. So in my case, I'm a member of the board of directors of the Municipal Police Employees Retirement System, and every year they ask me to sponsor legislation on their behalf. This is a little bit peculiar because what happened is I passed this bill last year, and it went to the governor's desk and was signed by the governor. But unfortunately, the version, I've never seen this happen before, but the version that was sent to the governor omitted some amendments that were placed on the bill that passed. So just to make sure that it stayed, it couldn't be challenged, we had to pass it a second time. Same bill. Now, we modified it a little bit, and what this bill does is add a very small percentage to what employers pay in order to provide for future COLAs for retired police officers. So it's an important bill to them. It's the only bill I've ever had in my life, and the only time I've ever heard from anybody that you had to pass the same bill twice. But I had to pass the same bill twice.
So you said you didn't have to pass it to see what's in it. You had to pass it twice to make sure that what was in it was in it.
Yeah, and actually the bill,
little joke there,
the bill, I mean, because it passed, because it was signed, even though there were some glitches with it, it actually is in the law books today, but it could be challenged because it does involve money, so a municipality may want to challenge it and say it didn't properly pass, which I think it did. But in any event, it was to clear up any potential litigation that might occur because of the peculiar way in which it went to the governor's desk.
Well, I'm glad you shared that because I always love sharing unique legislation stories, and that's the most unique I've heard this session.
And it had to happen to me.
I love it. Well, you got HB 62 reduces the rate of the state sales tax and use tax.
Well, this is a bill that I brought last year. We know that in a couple years, the sales tax, the temporary 0.45% sales tax, is going to expire. That's in the books, unless, there's always a possibility that the legislature could extend that date. But assuming that it's going to expire, it seems to me that it would be better to phase it out, particularly when we have budget surpluses. So it's kind of a case, if we don't need the money, why are we collecting it from the taxpayers? And instead of saying if we don't need it, let's don't collect it to begin with, and plus prepare us a little better. So it would have reduced the sales tax by a little less than half so that the fiscal cliff we face in future years, in fiscal year 25, would not be as steep. So this was a bill that was an attempt to ease us into the loss of that revenue and recognize that if we don't need it, why are we collecting it? But that's another bill that it looks like it's stuck right now. It's not. It's
Somebody
not.
still
It's
wants
not,
that money.
Yeah, it's not dead, but we got it out of the House. It passed House committee. It passed the House floor. It went to Senate committee, and by mutual agreement, I mean, it didn't look like it was going anywhere. So we just parked it, and they can call it back up if they change their mind on it. But it really never got to a vote. There was. We had some competing bills, actually. We had that same .45, another bill out there that would have dedicated it toward paying down unfunded accrued liability, which saves you money in the long run. So anyway, it's still got a breath, but it's not taking deep breaths.
When you try, this is just something I just thought of. That have you ever thought that when you're trying to unwind legislation that was done years ago by some legislator way before you, do you ever get the feeling of why do they do this to begin with?
Well, and listen, that tax was imposed during my tenure when we were in financial crisis, but we're not in financial crisis anymore. It might have been necessary then. It's not necessary now, in my opinion. And a lot of people share that opinion. Again, it made it out of the House, off the House floor and went to the Senate, but just timing, competing bills, for whatever reason, it's not. It doesn't look like it'll be resurrected, even though it could be resurrected.
Well, I appreciate that you had your eyes on it to save the taxpayers' money. HB 94 provides relative to theft or criminal access of automated teller machines.
It's getting to be a big issue here with automated teller machines, and what happens is with military precision, people are going in, criminals are going in. They will steal a 3/4 ton or a 1 ton truck, drive up to a location that has an ATM, crash through the front of a building if it's indoors, wrap a heavy chain around it, attach it to the ball of the truck, drag it off to some remote place. And what you don't realize is some of those machines may have as much as $100,000 in cash in them. Now, what happened was some years ago, Texas passed real tough laws about this, which had the effect of sending the Texas criminals to Louisiana to do these crimes, where they would face a less penalty if they were caught.
Right.
And it's not a rare case. I think in Baton Rouge there's been over 40 of them this year. So this is a serious crime, a lot of money involved, and we need to make sure that we that people do not see us as an easy hit. Yeah, an easy target, because our laws do not provide for sufficient penalties to deter those crimes.
I love this. So we got HB 166 requires certain information and analysis to be included in the governor's executive budget.
Well, budgets, what we pass this year impacts every future year. I'll give you an example. If we increase spending this year for recurring expenses like salaries of employees, we're obligated to continue to pay that in future years. Now, we talked earlier about the .45 rolling off. When the 45 rolls off in that year, we're going to have a projected budget. I think the new number that's going to come out on Friday is we're going to have about a $400 million deficit. So that $400 million deficit, if we grow recurring expenses like salaries this year, 400 can grow to 600 or 800.
Exactly.
So this bill simply says in appropriations bill and in the executive budget, we analyze the proposals to see if what we do today we can afford for 2 years into the future. So I think it's important that we not only say, can we afford it today, but can we afford it in future years? So that's what that bill does. It requires an analysis on what we do today, how it affects future years.
I love this. I love the foresight on this. I love the fact that you're looking forward on this and really, really trying to justify whether we need it today or tomorrow.
Yes.
I love this. HB 401 provides appropriations to non-governmental entities.
I pulled that one early on. So this bill, and what happened was we have a 5 bill limit because it's a fiscal session. I thought that would count as a physically related bill, but by definition it didn't, so I had to pull the bill. What that bill would have done if I hadn't pulled it in order to meet my 5 bill limit, it would have taken all those appropriations that go to non-governmental entities and put them in a separate bill. what happens oftentimes is there's a lot of things that I may not like in the appropriations bill.
Yeah.
But if it's a $45 billion bill and there's $10 million in there, do you kill it because you don't like the $10 million,
Right.
or do you recognize, okay, I've got to live with some things I don't like in order to keep the state afloat? This would have separated those out, so I could have had a more pure vote on the appropriations bill, then came back with a second vote to say, do I agree with these pet projects? Is
Exactly.
what it amounts
See,
to.
well, I like the fact that you're willing to park something. If it's not, instead of passing a bad bill, you can take some back to the table and look at it. Is that the right way to say it?
Well, this was parked because I thought the other bills were more important at this point in time and had a better chance of passing. So this was a bill that probably had a low probability of passage in my estimation. So it was bill number 6 and I could only have 5, so I had to make a choice. Which one am I going to dump?
Which one's a better one?
Right, because by Constitution I could have only had 5 bills this session.
So we've got, that was 401, I do believe. On the 401 provides appropriations of non-governmental entities, but you pulled that one. 477 provides relative to information provided when prosecuting offenses. Another one of those legal ones, or law ones.
Well, it's a sad thing, and you won't see this in the news very often, but our criminal records in Louisiana rank 47th in the nation for accuracy. In essence, what it means, I'll give you an example. For someone convicted of a felony, only 12% of those convictions show up in the automated criminal record. And the other side of that thing means that if someone has one felony conviction, and it's 18%, there's an 82% chance that it doesn't show up, and an 82% chance that felon can walk into a gun store and buy a gun meeting federal requirements, apparently because it's not being automated. What this bill does is 2 things. Number 1, it says who's responsible for what. Okay, so what are the judges or the courts responsible for doing? What are the law enforcement agencies responsible for doing? What are the clerks responsible for doing? So clearly delineate who's responsible for what, so that we can get our system in order. And listen, it's not just about convictions, it's also about people being found not guilty. Their record may continue to reflect that they have a pending armed robbery charge when maybe they were found not guilty, so it's a disservice to everyone.
I love, again, we heard there's the Lafayette shooter many years ago in the movie theater. He was able to go to Mississippi and buy a gun because it wasn't on his record, it wasn't enforced, and so something like this helps us improve crime. And
it's something that a select group of professionals have known about for a long time. They have a task force called the Integrated Criminal Justice Information System Study Group or Task Force, and when I became aware of this year, they were talking about what they were going to do. I said, why don't we just fix it? Well, this is part of just fixing it.
I love it.
And actually, it's going to take some funding, $10 to $15 million, to implement the computer systems that talk to each other. At least in the bill the appropriations bill as it left the House, I was able to get $10 million in. Now, whether that $10 million survives the entire process, whether the Senate leaves at the end, whether it's in the final version of the bill, we won't know for another week. But this seeks to fix something. I don't want to be. $10 million is cheap to bring us out of 47th place in this country.
That's a good
on an important topic.
That's a great way to put that. HB 91 commends the city of Malin, France, on the occasion of.
Those are just resolutions. We had Gonzales has a sister city in France, Milan.
Yeah, okay.
And it's just a commendation. So we have a couple commendations in there.
160 designates May 17th, 2023 as Bankers Day.
Every year we designate one day of the year as Bankers Day, and that was the day.
And
they asked me to carry that bill.
Well, have you had any legislation that was your favorite legislation?
This term?
Yes.
Well, I would have
yours
loved
or not yours?
Well, first of all, my favorite legislation, I guess, and I hate to call favorites because if I didn't like the bills that I proposed, I wouldn't have proposed them. But I really would have liked to have seen the water trespass bill passed. But such as the legislature,
That's
you
been
go
an issue
before.
for a long time.
It has, and it's people have brought bills on this every couple years for a long time, and unfortunately, we haven't been able to succeed in getting it to the governor's desk, but one of these years we will.
You know, in the legislature here, you go on the legislative site, you know, and you see pictures of everybody, all the state reps. Would you support legislation that would force legislators to update their pictures on the legislative site?
No, I
want to.
I want to continue to look like I did 10 years. No, actually, I do update my pictures. So yeah, but yeah, I do recognize this. You look at some of these guys and say that was taken a long time ago. But no, it's no.
And they keep debating the chicken sandwich on the House floor. You know, why don't they just make a state sandwich?
Well, I think we managed to get a butterfly, so maybe a sandwich. And listen, I'm of Italian lineage, so I might want to go muffalata, and I'm not sure how much support I could get on the muffalata being the official sandwich.
I didn't know we got a state butterfly. I have to keep that in mind.
At least they're trying.
Yeah, they're trying. Representative Bacala, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Certainly.
Yeah, and not only that, but you're in Gonzales. If anybody lives out in that area, please not only share somebody who's working hard for your community, Representative Bacala is, but who's working hard for our state. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.